What is maybe you know more about this. So in interesting segue, but also not interesting because it's very simple. The hospital that got built in Wuhan. Didn't you say there was a hospital that got built in like 6 days?
Yeah, so I watched this video actually.
Was it a time lapse?
No. Well, they did have a live stream. You could watch it. Like 80 million people watched it over the course of the whole thing or something crazy.
Cool, there's like a time lapse.
There is. There is a time lapse, like, because they had a live stream of the whole thing. But
my thought is this: like, you don't have time for inspections or regulations or anything, and it was just like all hands on deck, red alert, build this thing, all all things go.
So I watched this video by this page called Wendover Productions. They make really good educational videos on YouTube, and they also are part of this other. It's like Curiosity Stream. It's like a subscription service that you
I get a lot of ads for that. It's like, are you watching videos about cats? Why don't you learn something more interesting about cats on Curiosity Stream?
Yeah, and you pay like a monthly fee for like subscription or whatever. And so he does free videos on YouTube, and then also does extra videos that get put on Curiosity Stream. But anyways, Wendover Productions, go check out that video. But it talks about how they built this hospital in Wuhan in 10 days. And basically, the way that they did it was they actually did something similar with SARS back in the day, but they waited a really long time. They waited I think it was like a few months until like it was announced that it was like an epidemic or whatever that they finally were building. Because what's been happening is in Wuhan, they're only letting people in the hospital that are like severe cases or whatever. So people that are like mild cases are literally getting turned away, and then they're going back home and trying to recover at home, thereby infecting more people. And if you can isolate these people in the hospital, obviously, number one, they're under care so that they can hopefully get better. But number two, they're quarantined in a way so that they're not going to be infecting anyone else. And actually, they were talking about stats, I think, with like SARS and stuff back in the day. They were talking about how when they built these new hospitals, they had like a very, very low rate of the actual staff of the hospital getting infected because of the precautions that they put in place so that the actual doctors and nurses in the hospitals don't get infected. Because if they do it the right way.
That would be so terrifying to be like a doctor or a nurse, like tending to like a pandemic,
literally
knowing that more than likely you're probably going to get hit.
Yeah, no, that's scary, dude. That's scary as fuck.
It's like, don't go to work today, you know?
Yeah, so the way that they did this was they basically found, a flat area that was outside of, the city or whatever, and they spent most of the time was they were having to clear land and make a foundation, like clearing trees and all that. But basically they have all these prefab houses, like almost kind of like IKEA furniture, where they've got
3D printed buildings. Yeah.
It's not even 3D printed necessarily. It was just like imagine IKEA, they go to their parts bin and they say, okay, we're already producing this 2x4 plank. We can use that for this piece of furniture, this piece of furniture, this piece of furniture, and this piece of furniture. So they're not like making a specific type of item for each new piece of furniture. They're able to go to their parts bin, kind of like Legos, and say like, okay, we've got
auto
these
manufacturers
screws. Exactly. And auto manufacturers do that too. You'll see a really high end car and they've got they share the same like door latches with like the low end like Ford Focus or something. Like the Ford GT might have the same windshield wiper stock as like a
windshield button or something.
Yeah, and like people like Doug DeMuro like to point that out that it's a cheap route, but it's the way that they can efficiently make more cars and make them cheaper and better and all that. So it's kind of interesting. But anyway, so what they did was
because they have a lot of those. They got a lot of parts in the parts bin from all the mega cities that they've built that are mostly inhabited. But
yeah, and the company that they contracted to make the hospital is the largest building contractor in the world, and it's state run. So it's basically China, the government basically runs this company that makes all of these buildings. So it's not like there's a private contractor building the buildings and then they're having to go through regulators. It's like the regulators are so intertwined into the business.
So they can just say, go.
They can literally just be like, go. And there was thousands of people on this job. But basically what they did is almost kind of like, when you see like a trailer with a house rolling down the street, like they basically had like prefab houses and buildings that they could basically they could just bring walls and then like install them together and, you know, all these things. So they were able to get the building up very, very quickly once they had a foundation.
Like 6 days after the foundation was done?
After the foundation was done, the foundation took like most of the 10 days. I think the foundation took like 6 of the days or something. And then like the building was up in like a couple days. Like it was it's crazy. And
that blows my mind.
And the first patients were in the building like 10 days after they like broke ground or whatever. Like it's absolutely nuts. But it's amazing, and they're actually building a couple more. So it's not like they're just building one hospital.
Damn industrious, dude.
It's crazy, and that's what happens when the government is run by engineers instead of lawyers, dude. Because that's what really, really crushes innovation is when you get stifled in all the litigation.
Yeah.
When you've got engineers that are problem solvers that are running shit, they know how to like go into a situation and maneuver their way in and figure it out. That's why, it's
funny how that you mentioned, you said lawyers, not engineers, not lawyers, because if you look at the U.S., almost every congressional person or president or people that are running for office anywhere have law degrees.
Exactly.
And it's like, I wonder. And if they don't have a law degree like Trump, they've got shit tons of lawyers.
Oh yeah.
You know, around just
and China is their main fundamentals are math, science, and engineering and all, like the STEM focus, and a lot of Asian countries are very focused on that, and that's why they're innovating and crushing the competition. But in the US, we're so focused on like litigation and blah 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 and equality and like all these things that it stifles innovation in a lot of ways, but also gives us a lot of the freedoms that we enjoy.
Regulation stifles innovation a lot.
Yeah, for sure. But it's really fascinating because
but also don't forget, like, China is brutally dictators, and
it's socialist. It's communist.
Not socialist, communist. Yeah, it's communist. It's brutal. They do not care about human rights violations. You know, like they can do whatever they want to the people whenever they want to the people. So it's very scary. But it's like also on the flip side of that, it's like no better place for a plague to break out than like a psycho ass country where they're like close down all the borders, all the flights, quarantine cities, arrest people and put them in quarantine jails, and like you know, all this crazy shit that China's up to.
Yeah, but also they're not to the point where, like, for example, in like typical communism, you think like, or, you know, in like, and not even communism, but like socialism too, like, you know, everyone makes equal pay and stuff like that.
It's the kind of communism and socialism that Jordan Peterson warns about.
Yeah, it is. And it's very scary. You know, watch Black Mirror, you know, you'll see all kinds of scary shit about the government overstepping their bounds on human rights and all that kind of stuff. It is scary, but I think the vast majority of Chinese people, they're not severely unhappy. I think they'd probably look to like a North Korea and be like, well, at least we're not them. You know, like there's always a bright side of things. And, you know, there's, I think the Chinese government tends to look at people as like a resource that is to be, it's almost like an infinite resource, right? Like they don't care if something harms people, because for the greater good of mankind or the greater good of the country, they're going to need to sacrifice some people or
the community.
Yeah, exactly. For, you know, because it's like that, you know, the conundrum of like self-driving cars. If you know, if you're able to save a kid, but like hit an old lady or something, they're kind of just like, no, we should kill the old people, you know, or like they think very logically about certain things rather than coming at it with empathy. And they're not thinking, oh, what if I was that person? I wouldn't want to die.
It's for the greater good or something like that.
Yeah, and I think Russia tends to think like that, and you know, they're willing to make sacrifices. Honestly. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with Lex Friedman. He's an AI expert from Russia, and he was born in Russia, and he was talking about that. Like, there's like the sense of community is not like a friendly sense of community. It's more like you got to do whatever it takes for everybody. But if that means like falling on your sword, like, so be it, you know, like sacrifice and things like that. Whereas in America, it's more like me, but also you, like everyone wants to have equal rights and stuff, but no one wants to give up their own.
What's interesting about the US is like, when it comes to, let's say, a big tragic event, everyone is going to do everything in their power to go help the people in that event. Americans want to be heroes.
Like 9/11.
Yeah, like 9/11 or Katrina or like Houston floods or, you know, any like school shootings, like all this stuff. Like people want to be heroes.
Yeah.
But no one wants to like prevent problems.
Yeah.
It's like
It's very Western thinking.
Yeah, no one cares about preventing issues. It's like
treating the symptoms rather than the root cause.
Yeah, they just want to be a hero. They'll go out of their way to feel like a hero and, you know, to bring people together, and it's like America strong, you know, and it's like we're gonna get
Boston strong.
It's like we're gonna
Vegas strong.
Everything's strong.
Everything's strong.
It's like we're gonna get through this together, and we're gonna help everybody out. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, what about all the vets? You know, that like 126,000 of them commit suicide every year, but every year military deaths are only like 5,000. So instead of like, how about we try to, you know, prevent, you know, all these military vets from killing themselves? And people are like, nah, that doesn't sound very heroic.
It's literally just like in The Dark Knight, like you know, the Joker's talking to Harvey Two-Face, and he's in the hospital, and he's like, he says, you know, a whole car of soldiers blows up and no one bats an eye, but one little old mare gets killed and everyone loses their minds, because it's like that's not supposed to happen, but the tank full of soldiers dying is supposed to happen. It's almost kind of like these, you know, you knew what you signed up for when you signed up for the military. You know what you signed up for. You knew you could get PTSD, so like, you know, that's on you or whatever.
So kind of to parallel that exact same thing, the same week that the Kobe helicopter crashed, a military helicopter crashed with 30 people on board, and like no one even said anything.
Yeah, because exactly, like you don't expect a civilian to like die in that regard. And also like the president takes helicopter rides like every day, and you know, like that's kind of sketchy to think about. Like, holy shit, if Kobe, like one of the richest people.
Well, I mean, that's why we've got vice presidents, which are also terrifying.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's, well, I mean, you have the vice president because you got to have the chain of command. But yeah, also like when I was watching videos on Air Force One the other day for like whatever reason, but when the helicopter takes off to take them to the actual air base where the Air Force One will take off, they fly with 5 other helicopters that all switch positions at all times, so that no one knows where the package is. Like no one knows which helicopter has the president in it.
That's why president and vice president never fly together.
Yep.
Hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want the full episode, you can click right here. If you want to subscribe, click here. If you want more clips, we got 2 more right over here.